The situation in the Persian Gulf just took a dramatic turn, and the world is watching very closely. That shift raised an important question among analysts and observers around the world. If the situation is already under control, why ask other countries to take responsibility for securing one of the most critical shipping lanes on the planet? To understand why this matters, you have to understand the importance of the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway sits between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, and it acts like a gateway for the global energy market. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply moves through this route every single day. Tankers carrying crude oil, liquefied natural gas, and other energy products pass through this corridor, non-stop. If anything disrupts that flow even briefly, the effects can travel quickly across the entire global economy. Energy prices can jump, shipping insurance costs can spike. Airlines and shipping companies face higher fuel expenses. Eventually, those costs move down the chain and reach everyday consumers in the form of higher prices at the pump and in stores. That's why every statement coming from political leaders about this region is being examined carefully by governments, markets, and security experts. And right now, some of those statements appear to be sending mixed signals. Early messaging suggested a strong and decisive position, but the later comments about other countries stepping in to secure the passage created questions about how the situation is actually unfolding behind the scenes. At the same time, reports began circulating that several allied nations might join expanded naval operations around the Strait of Hormuz to guarantee safe passage for commercial shipping. However, responses from some international partners quickly suggested that those expectations might have been overstated. Officials from certain European governments clarified that their military posture had not significantly changed and that their forces in the region remain focused on defensive stability rather than new offensive operations. In the world of international diplomacy, statements like that are significant. Allies usually coordinate announcements very carefully. When governments publicly distance themselves from expectations of military action, it often signals caution about becoming involved in a rapidly evolving situation. And there's a larger pattern here that analysts are beginning to discuss. Modern alliances are not just about military strength. They depend heavily on long-term trust, diplomatic relationships, and shared strategic planning. Governments want clarity before committing ships, aircraft, or troops to any mission, especially in regions where tensions can escalate quickly. That's why several countries in Europe and the Middle East appear to be approaching this situation carefully. Many of them rely heavily on energy imports that travel through the Persian Gulf. Maintaining stable shipping routes is a major priority, but at the same time, they are also focused on preventing escalation that could destabilize the region even further. Instead of rushing into aggressive actions, many governments are emphasizing defensive readiness, diplomatic communication, and contingency planning. Meanwhile, global markets are reacting in real time. Energy traders, shipping companies, and insurance providers constantly evaluate geopolitical risk. When tensions rise around key trade routes like the Strait of Hormuz, the financial calculations change almost immediately. Insurance premiums for oil tankers can surge overnight. Shipping companies start adjusting routes. Energy markets begin pricing in potential disruptions, and those adjustments can eventually affect the global economy. Large corporations are also paying close attention. Businesses that rely on international supply chains often begin exploring backup options whenever geopolitical uncertainty appears in major shipping corridors. If companies reroute supply chains, diversify energy sources, or sign contracts with alternative partners, those changes can reshape global trade patterns for years. And once those new systems are in place, they rarely disappear overnight. At the same time, media coverage of the situation has become part of the broader conversation. Political leaders frequently challenge how news outlets frame complex geopolitical stories. Critics argue that headlines sometimes exaggerate tensions, while journalists argue that public scrutiny is essential when global stability and economic security are involved. Regardless of where people fall in that debate, one thing is clear. Audiences are paying closer attention than ever to how global events connect to their daily lives. Here at the National Update, our goal is simple: break down major international developments in a way that helps viewers understand what's really happening and why it matters for the United States. Because even though events in the Persian Gulf may feel far away, the economic consequences can travel thousands of miles very quickly. Right now, experts see several possible directions this situation could take. The first scenario is de-escalation. Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels could reopen. Governments could quietly coordinate efforts to keep shipping routes stable while tensions gradually cool. If that happens, markets would likely calm, and leaders on all sides could claim that their actions helped maintain stability. The second possibility is a slow shift in global partnerships. Countries may continue building stronger regional alliances and diversifying economic relationships so they are less dependent on any single power during times of crisis. In that scenario, the United States would remain extremely influential. But the global system could become more decentralized over time. And then there's the scenario. Everyone hopes to avoid continued escalation. If tensions rise further, governments could face increasing pressure to choose sides. Markets could react with greater volatility, and the risks to global trade routes could increase significantly. History shows that geopolitical crises often develop step by step, with each reaction triggering the next. For Americans watching from home, the first signs of these global shifts usually appear in economic signals: energy prices, shipping costs, and market uncertainty. That's why developments in places like the Strait of Hormuz are closely monitored not just by military planners, but by economists, investors, and policymakers around the world. Because the decisions made in moments like this can shape international stability and economic conditions for years to come. The situation is evolving quickly, and new details are emerging almost every day. Here at the National Update, we'll continue tracking every major development and bringing you clear, factual coverage so you can stay informed about the events shaping the world. Now we want to hear from you. Do you believe tensions in the region will cool through diplomacy? Or could the situation become more complicated in the months ahead? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want reliable updates on the biggest global stories affecting the United States, make sure you subscribe to the National Update, because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could arrive at any moment.